Hi everyone, this is Victoria from Elite Medical Prep, and I'm sorry in advance for the quality of my screen on this video. Our main camera died, but we're going to work with it. We have an extremely exciting interview. Again, we're going to call Linda Abraham from accepted.com. Today, she's going to be talking to us about primary medical school applications versus secondary medical school applications, kind of the tips and tricks associated with both. And I'm extremely excited. She always has wonderful stuff to say. So let's get started. Hi, Linda. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Hi, Victoria. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we are very excited, as always, to hear your wisdom about everything with medical
Thank you.
school applications. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Perfect.
Great,
All right,
thank
so
you.
on that note, we will just jump right in. For those who might not know who you are or what accepted.com is, could you just say a couple of words about your background and the website?
Sure. So I'm Linda Abraham. I founded Accepted in 1994. We've been at accepted.com, the website, since 1996,
Wow.
and have been helping medical school applicants applying to medical school ever since founding the company. And delighted to talk about it today.
Awesome. All right. Well, so today we're going to be talking about primary applications versus secondary applications. So I know you're, of course, familiar with that. Other people within the medical applications space might also be familiar with that. But people who aren't, could you just explain really quickly what is the difference between a primary medical school application and a secondary medical school application?
Okay, well, the primary application is basically like the Common App to college.
Okay.
It is one application that is sent to all the US medical schools, MD programs, actually, or a COMAS program, depending upon the application that you fill out, that you direct them to. So you fill out one application, you tell them where to send it, and they send it off to the individual schools. The secondary applications are sent by individual schools who either have received your primary or who have received your primary and after a screening process decided that they wanted to get more information from you, okay, and a check. And the the primary, I think what's most important for applicants to understand is that the primary on a high level is about your physician, your fitness to become a physician, your qualifications to become a physician, whether it's an MD or a DO. The secondary applications, which again are sent by individual schools, are about your fit with that specific program and that specific school. So it's not that the schools are going to ignore the primary part. They're going to consider that also very heavily, but the focus changes and your focus as the applicant needs to change also.
Okay, so as you said, you're submitting your primary application. Today we're speaking about the MCAS. I understand there's two other variations. But so you're submitting that first, and then you're submitting your secondary application second. So what I'm going to ask you is, can I copy parts of from my AMCAS MCAS application and use that for some of my secondary applications if it's relevant?
Right. I strongly discourage copying and pasting from your MCAS to your secondary. First of all, they're going to read your primary, right? They're going to read the MCAS. So if they find the same stuff in the secondary, they're just going to think,
Right.
is she being lazy?
Right.
But there are other reasons why I strongly discourage it. You're wasting a valuable opportunity if you do that to give a medical school more reason to admit you.
Mhm.
You're also failing to show fit with that specific program because if it's in the MCAS, it can't be related to that specific program other than in a very general way. And finally, you're failing to show that you're taking the process seriously and are willing to invest the time and show the admissions committees additional insight, additional reasons to admit you by providing more information. And I guess that ties back to my initial point that it may just make you seem lazy, and we don't want to seem lazy when
Right.
we're applying.
So I guess that probably covers paraphrasing as well. Probably not a good
Paraphrasing wouldn't be a good idea, but I can imagine situations where there's activities in the primary that you're going to want to highlight it in a secondary, but build on what's in the primary. Show how that activity shows fit with a specific program. So, for example, if you worked in a soup kitchen among the urban poor, and this particular program is located in a large city and has outreach programs to serve the urban poor, suddenly that you're not just repeating what's there. You can go into more depth. You can tell a specific story. You can say how you want to work in that particular program at the school. So that's already building on what's in the primary.
Okay, and that is advised,
Yeah.
if you haven't. Okay,
Yeah.
great, great. So, what about? I know I'm asking about all of the what we could call lazy options, but we see that a lot. People search that a lot. People are curious. Well, most likely people are applying to many different medical schools, so they're trying to shave off the time. So we won't. I don't. I don't want to call them lazy, but as Lynn
No.
said, it's
Efficient. How about efficient? Would
efficient.
that be better? Okay.
A better idea, as Linda said, to go through everyone carefully and make it different. But question, can I,
Yes.
if I'm sending a secondary application to one medical school and by some chance another medical school also has some kind of overlap, both on their secondary applications, can I use similar answers or kind of copy bits from, my essay to medical
Yeah.
school A to medical school B?
Well, that is already less problematic because the school's not going to know that and your life's not going to change. So if you have a similar prompt and you want to go back and use the adapt, let's say, okay, the essay that you wrote for school A for school B. I can see that, but just make sure that you change the school name if it's in the essay,
Oh,
because
that's
that's a big, big no-no. And also make sure that in your pursuit of efficiency and time savings, which is highly relevant, make sure that you don't fail to show fit.
right.
All right. Adapt the essay to show that you belong at the second school with its mission, its strength, and its distinctive programs. And I also want to go back, if I could, to the question you posed a minute ago about just copying from the primary. And I said, you can take an experience from the primary and reuse it on the secondary. Realize that that's true. But if you have another experience that also highlights your commitment, let's again say, to the urban poor, then you'd be better off taking the second experience because they already see the first experience. So again, you need to be strategic about this. If you have another experience, highlight it, show it. They may not know about it otherwise. And that will reinforce the idea that you really have this commitment and this passion to help the urban poor.
Right.
And the same thing would go here in this question.
Okay, so on that note, we know that secondary applications are all different from each other. We're not going
Right.
to have medical school A is identical to medical school B. That's what the MCAS is for. That it's the same for everyone. So, what typically are schools trying to kind of find out about you, or maybe like common kinds of questions? Like, what does the secondary applications really help to paint more of a picture of who you are for the medical schools you're applying to?
All right. I think the key thing they're looking for, and I said this earlier, is they're looking for fit with their strength, fit with their community, fit with their mission and values. So they are looking to see if you belong at their school and in their community. Are you going to take advantage of their strengths and what they have to offer? Are you going to contribute to their community? Are you going to contribute a specific perspective, unique experiences or background, and thereby enrich the educational experience of everybody there? That's what they're trying to see in their secondary. Have they forgotten about you taking care of them or taking care of their loved one? No, it's still there. Those questions are still there, but you're answering a different set of concerns in the secondary. The primary hopefully address the one about your fitness to be a physician.
I see. Okay, and what is the typical length of some of these? And then based on that, what is the typical kind of deadline period? Is this like, maybe you get
Okay.
an email from the school that says, hey, we're requesting a secondary application or however that works, and then you just have to turn around quickly, or what's kind of the process for that?
First of all, secondaries vary enormously. They can consist of basically a request for a check and a short form. They can be a couple, a few short answer questions and a check. They can be 8 full length essays, like
Wow.
500. Yes. Oh, yes. Uh, yes.
And those
They
get
can be
read?
very demanding. the schools say they read them. I actually interviewed, this is Duke, and I interviewed the head of admissions at Duke Medical, and he said yes, they read them all.
Wow.
So yeah, so there's a lot of there's a lot of variations in secondaries.
Mhm.
In terms of the deadlines and turnaround time, medical schools also differ enormously in terms of their final deadlines for secondaries. They tend to come in the fall and early winter. However, the deadlines are much less important than when you actually receive the secondary. You want to turn them around as quickly as possible
Mhm.
because of the ever shrinking number of interview invitations that you hope to snag. So if you can turn it around, let's say in 2 weeks from when you get it,
Mhm.
and assuming that you submitted your primary fairly early in the process also,
Right.
then there are more interview slots available, and you will have it'd be more likely that you will get an interview.
Okay.
If you wait, first of all, don't wait at all. But if you end up waiting or you apply just before the so-called deadline,
Mhm.
there may be either very few or no interview spots left.
I see.
So you really want to turn those around. And we recommend that applicants turn around secondaries within about 2 weeks of receipt to to maximize their chance of snagging that interview invitation
Is that
without, by the way, compromising the quality of the essay. So it can be a tough thing to do.
no, I was just gonna ask, is that recommendation the same, the 2 weeks if we have the school with the 8 the 8 full-length essays?
Yeah, it really is. It's very hard. There are some things that you can do to uh, minimize the deluge or handle the deluge, I think, a little bit more effectively.
Mhm.
Um, First of all, do your research about the schools that you're applying to before you apply. Obviously, you have to select who's going to get your primary. So presumably there was some research, and it wasn't just eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or
I
choosing
would
from the
hope.
rankings, or all right, or choosing from the rankings, or something like that. So if you did that research, I hope you also took notes during that research about what appeals to you about the program, again, the mission, the values, and so when you go to respond to secondaries, examine your notes. The goal now is to show fit with specific programs, and you need to know those programs well in order to respond effectively to secondary essay questions. If you can, also start pre-writing secondaries after you submit your primary and before you start receiving the secondaries. There's usually a 4 week window. And anything that you write during that time, I know it's hard, you're tired, do it anyways. Okay. Um, Anything that you write then will help you respond more quickly and effectively to the secondaries. On accepted, we have secondary essays, not from this cycle yet, but from the previous cycle. It is possible that schools will change them, but they change seldom.
Okay.
And there are similarities. So I would say that you should start pre-writing. You can, in terms of typical questions, why this school is a real typical question.
Okay.
Um, Another typical question is, what will you add to the diversity of our program? Another typical question is, can you talk about either an accomplishment or a leadership experience that you're proud of? And an increasingly common question, in light of what we've been going through, is, how have you been affected by COVID?
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And I would say, I'll throw in a bonus tip here.
Okay.
Don't just talk about what COVID did to you,
Mhm.
talk about how you responded.
Right. But
Okay.
it seems like that's kind of a common theme with everything in your applications is, touch on what happened, but then the bulk of it should be how you responded and how, you kind of rose from anything that might have been going on. That's very insightful.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's what's going to take your essays to the next level.
Great. Well, before we're up on time here, do you have any final tips about secondary applications that might be relevant for the people watching this video?
Well, I mentioned again already, trying to turn them around in 2 weeks
Yes.
without compromising quality. And I know that's tough. Taking notes on the schools that you're applying to as you research them so that you don't have to, reread the website all over again, or you're listening to videos, whatever it is, talking to current students. And if you can, start pre-writing secondaries between when you submit your primary and start receiving your secondaries. Another sometimes tip that people employ so that all secondaries don't come at one time is they'll start off their primary by listing one, two, or five schools. Then a week later, they'll add another five, and a week later, they'll add another five. And this means that their secondaries are a little bit more spread out.
Right.
Now, that also means that you're going to be getting the secondaries a little later and responding a little later, but that, again, it can be a deluge depending upon how many schools you're applying to.
I see.
Now, we also, we have lots of tips at Accepted on writing
Yeah.
secondaries. You can find articles at accepted.com/secondaries in plural. Okay. You'll also find a link there to our downloadable guide for different schools' secondary prompts. And as it happens, I'm presenting a webinar both at SDN in June and in July at Accepted, specifically on secondary essays.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Great. So
Now,
we'll definitely drop that information.
we also offer one-on-one consulting both on the primary and the secondaries. So
Great. And are there tips? The one thing really quickly that struck me was you gave a couple of examples of like very common questions, particularly the first two that you mentioned, which was why this school, this program, and what can you contribute to the diversity of the program? Is there other maybe insight on Accepted or elsewhere about kind of how to answer some of those trickier questions? Because just as you say it, I'm thinking I wouldn't really know how to answer that. That's difficult for maybe some people.
right. Well, the why this school question is actually something I am addressing in the secondary essay webinar. And it is something that we do address in the secondary tips that we have on the site. In terms of the diversity question, actually one of the most popular posts on the site is how to respond to a diversity question, not specifically for medical school or secondaries, but if you go to accepted.com or blog.accepted.com and just in the search bar put write diversity essay, you'll come to that blog post.
Awesome. Well, all right, that's super helpful. Thank you again so much for being here
Thank you.
today, talking to us about primary and secondary applications. We look forward to hearing from you another time. All right, and that is all the time that we have for this video. A huge thank you, as usual, to Linda Abraham, founder of Accepted.com, for being here to share all of her wisdom and insight about medical school applications. Make sure to go ahead and visit any of the links she mentioned during the video. We're going to try to add them in the description below for easy access, all of you. And then otherwise, like this video, subscribe to our channel for more really cool interviews, and let us know who we should interview next.